Welcome to Blink Language. In this video, we're going to
Listen, your life could depend on this. Don't blink. Don't even blink.
Key foundational information on blinking. We'll give 5 techniques for improving narrative by using blinks in the right spots. Then we'll go and show how to use blinking in the sequencer, as well as 2 auto-blinking solutions using blueprints. And finally, we'll cover how to animate the pupil and the iris. Let's jump in and get started. It's good to know as much of the basic anatomy of the eye as possible, and I will put that in the notes below. For this video is specifically about the movement. The eye moves. It's a bit different than standard animation, ease in, ease outs. The movement is known as a saccade, and the saccades are fast movements. Eyes can move over 700 degrees per second, and the trajectory is actually ballistic. Basically, your brain knows what it's going to look at before the eye moves. It's pretty amazing. They're constantly darting and refocusing. So make sure you animate the eyes accordingly. In addition, the way our eyes are connected to our brains is our brains specifically have parts associated and optimized, tuned to faces. So making sure you get the eye movement and the facial movement is critical. Our faces have 43 muscles, and face rigs, to be realistic, have to be equally complex. So let's get some of the easy stuff right, like blink frequency. We blink per minute about 15 to 20 times. That's once every 3 to 4 seconds, and the length of each blink is around 0.1 to 0.4 seconds. Why do we blink? Physiologically, we blink for moisturizing, clearing, protecting, resting, vision clarity, and sometimes we twitch when we're stressed out. Making sure you get your characters blinking normally is critical. But like the twitch, there's other areas that can bring your animations to life. So here's 5 key places to add a blink, and I found different clips from different films to illustrate each point. So the first one is at the end of a thought.
Gandalf
Says, breathe the free air again, blink, my friend.
breathe the free air again, my friend.
Stirring a breath. Cleansing is before important phrases. Blinking before talking.
We live in a cynical world. A cynical world.
This next clip also shows how movement can be combined with technique number 3.
Fredo.
The 4th, while processing.
You once were a vegan.
Vegan.
The 5th as a non-verbal cue.
Do you want to know what it is?
Using blinks at the right moment can make your work so much more effective. Now let's talk about MetaHuman eye design and blink controls. First, the eye design. When you're creating your MetaHuman, of course, you can always change things after the fact. It creates a material that is modifiable. But the iris and also the sclera, one thing you can do for a design factor is if you want your character to look sick, you can sometimes represent the sclera as looking a little bit yellow to show signs of a jaundice. In addition, for the iris itself, one thing that's possible is you can drop this down and design a different color for each eye. By default, it's set to both, but I just want to point that out. Finally, the overall eye itself. One thing that you can do is you can sculpt to make your eyes slightly bigger on the MetaHuman. So there's these points that you can kind of see. Just drag out, make them big. Here's what we're going to do next. Keyframed sequencer and in blueprints and an animated eye material. In addition to the keyframed facial blinking, we can also use some pre-done facial animations. So I will put the link into the notes below for the city sample crowds. We'll download that and we'll show how to transfer this onto our MetaHuman. Okay, so here's the finished animation and we've got the blink and a little bit of facial movement. But what was that with the eyes? We also have added a pupil dilation and also a brightness factor. Now you might not want to do something like that unless it's a visual effects shot, but I just want to demonstrate that it's possible to animate the materials in the eyes. So let's go over how to do that. Okay, so we are going to jump out of this sequence and into an empty one where we will add the character. So you can select the character, add her here, and then in order to get the blinking, you can just search for it, and you'll find it under the face control rig board, and you'll see those blink parameters. We can select those and set keyframes. It'll just move a few keyframes over. Now if we select each individual one, we should see a float value. I'm going to type in 1, hit enter, and 1, and hit enter. We'll go and we can just copy these initial keys. So just hit Control D, slide those over, and we have a blink. Now we can just copy and paste this entire group, slide it over. Now we've got a couple blinks, and there's other ways you can right click and can duplicate. That's a start. Okay, the next step that we're going to do that can save us even more time is we are going to use existing blink animations from the City Sample crowd. So to do that, we're going to the City Sample crowd folder, then go to characters folder, anims, and facial. Now this, we can use the export anims workflow. So if you just right click on one of these and say retarget animations, then you simply put the target skeleton, which is the name of the character that you've imported. So this is Hannah. So if we just type Hannah, there's the Hannah face mesh, that's kind of important. And then we'll test one of the crowd animations. So here's crowd happy, and you can see it is working. So we can do all of these animations at the same time. We'll say export animations, and I'm going to put them into my content folder, animations, crowd. I did this before, so I'm going to put this in a crowd 2 folder. So we'll just export these, and then we'll test it. When we test it, one thing that you can do is you need to make sure that the face rig isn't there. That'll kind of mess up the animations. So you can delete that, because you can always add it back whenever you want. That'll get rid of the keyframes that we added earlier. But now in the face, go here and go to animation, and there's the crowd animations we exported. So crowd happy, and let's hit spacebar and see if, there she goes. And you can see she's even got some slight animations on there, which is great. Okay, wonderful. The final 2 steps, I'm going to give you the final output and show you what I did to make the procedural blinking and the material parameters, and then I'll also share some additional resources if you want to take this further. So let's get coding. The step for doing this is go to the MetaHumans folder, do a search for post, and open up the face post blueprint. I've got that open. Now you want to go into the anim graph, and you want to add a control rig. So just right click and type control rig, and in the control rig you want to modify the class. You want to plug it in, actually, face control board, and then create a boolean down here. Called it eyes closed, and just plug that boolean into the control left and control right blink. And now you can turn that on by going down here and just clicking these. Okay, once it's turned on, you need to compile. Then go to the event graph, and this is the final output for the event graph. So you're going to, I held down the Alt key to drag out the setters for the get eyes closed. Kept this one turned on. This one is off. And this is the blink length chunk of code. I did a random float and range from 0.1 to 0.4 seconds. And there's a delay. Then this is the blink frequency. This is when this is off. When and how often do we blink? Every 3 to 4 seconds. And that's it. Let's double test. Yep, there it is, and she's blinking. Awesome. In this final step, I've pulled up the initial sequencer animation, and we are going to work on animating the eyes and the irises. But why isn't her blink and animation ambient working? That's because we have the control rig being controlled by the anim graph, and so we can just cut out this control rig here, recompile, and she should be back. All right, awesome. So how do we do this? In order to control an anim instance, we need to use a material parameter collection. So what do? I right-clicked, just type parameter, create a material parameter collection. I did that. I called it my IMPC, and in that I went into the scalar parameters and created two. The first I called pupil and set it to 1.25, and the second I called iris bright, and that started at 8. So you save that off. And this second to last step is to modify the eye material, and to do that we need to find it. So hitting Control E will open up the blueprint. I'm going to go to face and find the eye simplified here. I'm going to click on the parent and just keep going into the parent. Now we're in the root eye for all the MetaHumans. So modifying this, do with care. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this pupil scale vector parameter with our material parameter collection, and also the iris brightness with our material parameter collection. So how do I do that? Right click, type collection parameter, and then we need to plug in which collection, which was my MPC, and then we created two parameters for that. There's the iris bright and an iris pupil. So this first one, pupil, then, and plug that into the pupil scale. Now, by doing this, we will then have the ability to call this information. So you'll have to apply, and we'll be able to call this from inside the sequencer. And let's go to the sequencer. The final step is to create a parameter collection in the sequencer. So to do that, you just right click, create a material parameter collection track, and you need to call the correct one, which is again the my MPC I1, and then you plug in the parameters that you're going to be calling. So I called both the iris bright and the pupil. You can see, then I just added keyframes. There we go. And you could try other parameters for the eyes. As you can see, it has to be a material instance that you're modifying. This is amazing, and it's going to give you a ton of extra power. To give you even more power, I'm going to share some additional resources. Let me pull that up. I'm giving a big shout out to Spicy Game Ingredients, and if you want to take the random blinking inside the anim graph further, you can go to their tutorials. Here's a link to the city samples, blink frequency article, and my material parameter collection tutorial. Awesome. Thanks so much. That'll wrap things up. If you like the video, give it a like and make sure you subscribe for more weekly Unreal content.